Welcome back to the Miles in My Shoes video series. I'm your host, Chris Richardson. And for this week, I want to talk to you about the concept of diversity fatigue. And what I mean by that is various perspectives. But first, we'll start with number one. I've shared before in previous conversations with leaders and other people and friends that when I think of how I would describe my journey as a black man in corporate America, the number one word I used was exhausted. It's exhausting. It's exhausting having to move in circles where you don't see yourself reflected in the leadership around you. It's exhausting having to move in circles where people necessarily don't understand your plight, or don't understand the barriers to entry for certain industry that people of color face, or understand the higher standards we place on ourselves and that are also unfairly placed upon us. However, I want to make something clear. When I use that term, I think it raised a lot of questions, and a lot of people I had positive interaction, and people said, hey, I didn't know that you felt that way. It's never meant to say that I own the franchise on suffering. I don't. As a black man of color, I walk through the world in this skin, and that's it. This is the only journey that I know. Here's the important part, though. There are women of color, men of color, people of all different races and nationalities that are having struggles and that have disadvantages, and it's time that we talk about that. That's the important part. So when I say diversity fatigue, I'm not only referencing my exhaustion, I'm referencing the concept of diversity at a corporate level. You see, in my entire career, I've been on the front lines of diversity and inclusion efforts, and that word is so much more than what we put on a slide, or so much more than when we tag it to statistics, whether it's 2% or 3% of the workforce. That word means more, and we've got to get past that part of the conversation. When it comes to diversity, I think the challenge that we face is that we can't look at it as a simple equation. Simple equations can be solved. Oftentimes they have simple solutions. No, this is ongoing. Diversity should be looked at as a formula. And the best way to exercise or use a formula or leverage a formula is to get to know it. It's something that we can only get closer to. And we get closer to it by expressing our feelings, by respecting the perspectives of others, and by having an open and honest dialogue. So when a person of color, or any person for that matter, expresses certain strong feelings about the plight of being in their own skin, if you don't understand it, if you don't understand that perspective, I suggest you lean in and get close and have the conversation. Ask the right questions in terms of why they feel that way to get to better know them and understand them. One perfect example is Bryan Stevenson, who's a human rights activist that recently spoke at my company, Cisco. And this man was phenomenal. He's dedicated his career and his life to helping the poor and the incarcerated. And he's done it through preaching the value of proximity, leaning in and getting close to the problem. Too many times as a society and as corporations, we don't take a stand, and we take certain problems and we want to compartmentalize them, or we want to put them off in a box, and we're not willing ourselves or allowing ourselves to get up close and personal and get uncomfortable and talk about the problems, talk about the perspectives, even if it makes us feel uncomfortable in our own skin, even if it makes us feel guilty, even if it makes us feel angry. There's value in understanding and talking about perspective. And I thought Bryan Stevenson did a masterful job of talking about this when he came to our company. I think we can apply those same concepts to diversity and how we look at that word. So in terms of diversity fatigue, let me tell you what I believe diversity is not. It's not something that we can simply tweet about. It's not something we can simply execute or launch a marketing campaign where we have people of different skin colors laughing and smiling as if everything is okay. It's not one person's point of view, even my own. It's talking and communicating and respecting the right that we're all humans. Are you getting a fair shake at life? Are you being listened to? Are you being respected? Is your voice being heard? These are all parts of the complex formula that is diversity. And what I've committed to doing with that formula, I've committed to starting the conversation. In my upcoming podcast, I'll be having guests of all different nationalities, all different genders, talking about their experiences as they walk through life. As I mentioned before, no one person owns the franchise on suffering. We're all human beings, and talking is the best way to deal with some of the issues that face us today. So if we truly start to look at the concept of diversity as something that's not just a simple equation that can be solved, but take a formulaic approach. Don't just stand back and look at the formula. Dive in. Dive in and help solve the issues and the challenges that we're facing. When you think about coming home from a long day of work and you're feeling tired and you're feeling frustrated, sometimes it helps, whether it's your pet or whether it's your companion, to vent, to vocalize your struggles, to vocalize your vulnerabilities, and talking to someone can help remediate some of that fatigue. Diversity is the same thing. So when people share their experiences and share how they feel, if you don't understand it and if you don't really get their perspective, don't just brush it off. Remember that formula is an ongoing challenge, and figure out how you can help to solve that formula, how you can help to contribute to the many different facets that make up diversity. If we can all do that as human beings, I think we can come a long way. I'll be the first to admit that as my journey has taken me to places where I've not been around other people that look like me, when I get in a setting where I'm dealing with other African Americans and people that understand my plight and understand my struggles, I felt recharged, I felt energized, but I felt hope when I've been seated at a table where there's not just people that look like me. I'm seated at a table of my peers, where there's people from all races, all ethnicities, and different nationalities that come together in the spirit of true dialogue to talk about the changes that we need to make. I think that it is okay to vent to people in your circle that understand your struggle. But if true change is ever going to be impacted for this complex equation that diversity is, we need all variables involved. We need all variables at play. So when it comes to making true change and making true transition, everyone needs a seat at that table. Everyone has a voice. Everyone has a unique experience that we all need to hear with our own ears in order to truly understand and then take action. So if, like me, you're experiencing diversity fatigue and you see all these slides on diversity and you see all these statistics and you feel like it's a meaningless surface level conversation, I challenge you to go deeper. Ask difficult questions. Challenge your peers to talk about the things that make us uncomfortable. The best way that we're going to move forward and the best way you're going to shake off that fatigue and that exhaustion is to take the mystery out of the word. Let's get real, let's get uncomfortable and share. Talk to someone and take someone out to coffee that you don't normally interact with. Maybe there's someone that culturally you just don't understand and you feel like you can't identify with. Reach out to that person, talk to that person, and ask the hard questions. If you approach it with true curiosity and true humility, we can shake off this fatigue and get to a more meaningful conversation. It all starts with walking a mile in the shoes of others. Thank you for listening.